everyone. Welcome to another episode of Getting to the Bottom Line, where my goal is to help put into perspective different things that impact your revenue, profit, and cash flow. My name is Stephanie Smith. I am the owner of New Light Financial Solutions, and we offer outsourced CFO services. And we like to help businesses generate more cash in their business. That's our goal. And I like to think of businesses as a machine. So every business runs like a machine. They have different parts. And if a part of your machine breaks, you want to find that part that's broken and fix it so you can get your machine working back in the order it's supposed to. And your business is the same way. So when you know what parts and what levers to pull, you can get your machine, your business functioning optimally. And all of these pieces and parts of your business impact your bottom line. So that's why I have this podcast. I have this guest on with me today. Matthew and he's a lawyer, which could definitely be one of those parts of your business. So thank you just so much for joining me today, Matthew.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie. I'm looking forward to trying to use the machine metaphor now.
Oh yeah, see, it's good. Every business is a machine. It all has parts. And you're part of everybody's machine, or should be. So tell me a little bit more though about you and what you do.
Sure. I live in South Florida. I'm a business law attorney, and what I do is I help small and medium-sized businesses with their legal needs, whether it's litigation or transactional. I've been doing it for over 20 years.
That sounds like fun. No.
It's been fun. There's been some
Not
fun
fun
things
for
that
me.
have
That's not
happened.
my area of expertise, but very interesting because I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot of things.
Yes, I've seen way more than I ever want to see, and I've heard way more than I ever want to hear.
Oh man, maybe you'll tell us one of your stories, but tell me, I want to know because let's say I want to say newer to business. Let's say my business is less than 5 years old. Like, why would I need a business lawyer?
Well, as part of your overall business, obviously you need to have a bunch of tools in place for your machine. If your business is a machine, you got to have a bunch of accessories for the machine
Right.
so that are necessary. So part of the machine, I guess, is you need to have the instruction manual and the plans. And part of that is you have to have like a written business plan and make sure you have all your documents organized and all stuff like that. And that's why you need to have a business law attorney. Hopefully, you just mentioned 5 years on coming board. Hopefully, you'd have it from the inception to come on board. But generally, if I were to come on board for like a existing business and do something, it would generally be I would review their governing documents, like if they're a corporation, I'd look at their bylaws and their articles of incorporation, or if they're an LLC, I'd look at their operating agreement and just make sure everything's in order. And then obviously I'd look at their contracts, like if they rent a commercial space, I'd look at their lease. I'd look at if they buy and sell stuff, I'd look at their contracts. And just basically, come in kind of like a dentist as a checkup, make sure there's no major problems there. And if there are problems, then we'll address them on a piece by piece basis. But generally, that's how I would come into a existing business already. Is I would just come in and look at what's going on, make sure everything's in order, and then if there's any problems, we'd address the problems.
Well, that makes sense, obviously, and people probably need your help a lot. What's one biggest mistake that you see when it comes, because I want to ask this question for multiple things, but when it comes to like your governing documents for your business, like the setup of your business.
One of the things that I see a lot is, as part of your business, having like professionals at your disposal is kind of a necessity, not a luxury. You should have an accountant, you should have a business law attorney, you should have a banker. And one of the things that I see that is a problem is that people with their documents just kind of sometimes use stuff sometimes they don't have the documents, which is a major problem in and of itself, which needs to be fixed. But sometimes they have documents that they find off the internet that may be great for where they're supposed to be in the internet, but they're not great for your business. And an example I have is I had a client who has a dog training academy. All right. And
Oh,
yeah, it's cool. Does a great job, trains high-end dogs or whatever, like very interesting. But one of the things he did was he came to me after obviously he's already in business. One of the things he did was he had a bunch of employment contracts that he found off the internet. And
hmm.
we're in South Florida. His employment contracts he found were from Wisconsin. And they say that Wisconsin law applies and that any dispute will be settled in Wisconsin. And so he had a problem with one of his employees. And I told him, you got a problem because your stuff's applying Wisconsin law. And Florida is a very pro business state, and Wisconsin is a very pro labor state. So he had some major problems that we had to go fix because he got some forms off the internet that he thought were good that really weren't good. So the moral of the story is, you gotta, if you can, have an attorney help you with these documents, help you draft them, help you implement them. And then if you can't, make sure you do very good due diligence if you're pulling something off the internet to make sure it applies to where you are and just not something general that you find, because it may be fine in another state, but it could be catastrophic in your state.
Yeah, I can't imagine that nobody just takes stuff off the internet that they find, right? Especially when you're
Yeah.
just starting out. That's nobody does that.
Yeah.
Well, no. You must see that. You must see that a lot. People just download stuff off the internet. There are some good resources, I think, that are specific to legal documents and stuff like that, or hiring someone would make sense. But I feel like it's probably pretty common that people do just take from someone else or Google it, and then they never have someone look at it. So, what about on the side of like sales contracts?
It's the same thing. I mean, if you can have a professional like me or a business law attorney, whatever, draft it for you, that would be great. If you need to, if you can't do it yourself, whatever, I mean, there's things like LegalZoom and stuff like that that are generally less expensive than attorneys who they can help you, draft kind of a generalized business or sales agreement. But the issue is with a sales agreement is that you've got to, you got to make sure it's tailored for where you are, because you're selling stuff in, let's say, Florida. If I'm selling stuff from Florida to Florida, I have to make sure that I'm collecting Florida sales tax and, various things like that. If I'm selling stuff across state lines, then I got to make sure I've got the tax for the state I'm selling to. I've got the Florida tax if it's necessary. And then things like that, which if you just kind of pull something off the internet, you're not going to have. And then also, if there's a problem, you need to have like provisions in your contracts that say what happens when there's a problem. Where if you just pull something off the internet, it may not say that. Where if you get you get something that's well drafted or whatever, it'll say like, if you don't pay me, here's what's going to happen. Or if I didn't deliver the goods to you, here's what's going to happen. Versus I got it off the internet and kind of just, well, it's whatever it is.
Do you ever help people in the situations like I had a problem with my employee came and now there's an issue? Do you help with that as well, or is it just the setup for the contracts and the documentation?
No, I help with the litigation part and the stuff where there's like problems that require court intervention or some kind of other avenue to try to address what's going on. So it's that portion is definitely more dynamic than the drafting portion and the setup portion, because the documents should be in place, but sometimes they're not. So then that puts you at a disadvantage. And then, going to court is always interesting because uh, bad things can happen in court. Good things can happen, but bad things can happen. So that's why you got to prepare and make sure your stuff's in order beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to have probably not the result you're going to want.
Makes sense. Have you seen, or what kind of impact could it have to your business if you have an issue and you don't have the right documentation in place to solve for that to begin with, or maybe you did, and there's just an issue in general. I don't know my question.
Yeah, if you don't have the right documents in place, I mean, you could essentially lose your business if something goes wrong. Like if you have, let's say, for instance, a commercial lease and you're a tenant and you didn't negotiate your lease, and let's say you're forced to sign a personal guarantee and your business fails. Well, now, because you were forced to sign a personal guarantee and you didn't negotiate that away or didn't negotiate it with the help of an attorney, now not only is your business, which may be out of business, obligated to pay the money, but now you personally are obligated to pay the money. Whereas if you had an attorney help you, you may have been able to get rid of the personal guarantee and not have to worry about now being personally responsible for your business debt. So it's examples like that that apply across the board of how, if you're not prepared or you don't have the documents in place, things could get pretty bad for you personally, not just your business.
I can see that. And yeah, having to take on personal um or like financial things out of your personal pocket. Like nobody wants to do that, right? Especially if your business closes, the goal would be that your business is handling all of that. Nothing comes after you. You want to be set up to protect yourself.
Yeah, and that's why you have your business documents in place. That's why you run your business formally, not like a hobby. It's a real thing that you have to comply with all the regulations for the state that you're in. And you got to make sure that you do everything above board. You make sure you have your own bank accounts. You don't mix money with your own personal money with your business. You got to make sure that you take out the correct taxes, you pay the correct taxes, you file all the paperwork that's required with the state, you file all your paperwork that's required with the federal government, because you don't want your business now personally taking you down.
When you work with a business, do you typically will go through a list of the things you're listing out? Like, let's work through all the things and I'll check all the things for you and see what needs to be improved or added or removed.
Yeah, for the most part, it depends on, you gave an example of a business that's been around like for 5 years or whatever, right? Like a lot of businesses I deal with have been around for a while, and a lot of them are just starting out. So it's the same process. We're starting out, I have like a list of things we need to do. If it's already existing, it's that same list that we now have to go back and check what you have to make sure it complies with what should have been done in the first place. So it's pretty much the same, whether it's startup or whether it's mid-process, where it's a list of documents and everything that need to be in place that we need to go through that make sure they work for you and your business.
That makes sense. I mean, obviously, every business needs similar things, right?
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to work with people on?
I like helping, excuse me, like helping like startup businesses and new businesses when they first start out, like before anything happens, because I like putting them on the right set of tracks or whatever you want to say, so that whether they succeed or fail is on their own merits and not on technicalities or not on complying with something or not having the right piece of paper or signing the right document. So I like working with businesses so that we take out the legal factor, we take out the technicalities, and you focus on your business. And if you succeed, you succeed. If you don't, it's not because you're going to get hit with some kind of legal issue or something like that.
It's probably easier to mold people the way that you think should be molded, or the right way. Let's do it the right way straight out of the gate, as opposed to going back to trying to fix or get people who've been in business a long time to change what they've done. I imagine it's easier to do it right from the start.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, particularly when you want to work with like a team to make sure that you have an accountant in place, like a banker in place, like if you're doing internet stuff, like an internet person in place, versus having to come in and then not only deal with the documents or everything, but then you also have to be like, well, you don't have an accountant. We need to find an accountant now who you're comfortable with, who can do the work for your business. Or you've been dealing with a bank but you don't really have a commercial banker. Well, now we have to find a commercial banker for you to work with in order to make sure everything's financially okay, your cash flow is okay, and things like that. So a lot easier to do in the beginning rather than is to finish it in the middle.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like the idea of having your team, right? Like you have a team that you
Yeah.
have your go-to people, and I'm sure you often work with some of the same people, and you end up working together a lot. Probably often both sides, not always the same people, but then you can always recommend those people to your clients that like if you don't have a CPA, I might have one you could recommend, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have like a list of, or not a list, I have like an actual group of different professionals who I work with, and I'm not going to push, my CPA on you or whatever. If you want to pick a CPA, that's fine. It's just we need to be able to collaborate with each other because we're both looking out for your best interests, just on different angles. So if you need someone to recommend, I can recommend them. If you want to go find your own person, you can find your own person. I just need someone who works with me to help you in your business.
Okay, so I want to ask, and you don't have to answer, but like, what's the craziest story or thing you've seen doing this?
Um,
Change the
well,
names to protect the innocent?
yeah,
No.
I've seen, see, the thing is that I've been doing this so long and I've seen so many things that the bar has been lowered as to what, or I should say, has been raised, I should say, to what would seem abnormal to someone else. Like it's just normal stuff that happens to me that, like I one that would phase someone that doesn't phase me because I've seen it for over 20 years. I mean, I had a attorney fake a car accident to get out of a deposition. So
What?
he actually didn't fake it. He staged a car accident to get out of a deposition.
For one of your client, like
Yeah, like
for one of your clients?
I was gonna depose his client, depositions where you ask questions, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna depose his client. He practices out of Orlando. This case was in Palm Beach County, which is Boca Raton area. So he drove down and we're waiting for him. And then he calls his client. He's like, "Oh, I got in a car accident or whatever." And it turns out we later find out that he staged the accident himself in order to try to get out of doing the deposition. So
That's
that's pretty
crazy.
crazy. I've got so many crazy stories though, but that one's pretty weird, but I've got a lot of weird
What
stories.
about on the client side? Like, what's one of the worst things you've seen a client end up having to deal with?
Um, I've seen
That maybe if they would have hired you, they wouldn't have had to deal with that.
yeah, I mean, just a lot of people get judgments against them for stupid things that if they would have hired an attorney, like nothing would have happened. But
Hmm.
because they didn't hire someone, like they got a massive judgment entered against them, or that happens all the time. People just kind of try to ignore lawsuits, even though you should take it very seriously and make sure you, contemporaneously and timely deal with a lawsuit as seriously as possible. Some people are just like, oh, and then all of a sudden there's a judgment entered against them. And then people like, execute, which means collect on the judgment. Like they seize bank accounts and stuff. And like the person's like at Costco trying to pay, and all of a sudden it's like decline. And it's like, what happened? Oh, your bank account's frozen. And that's because you ignored a piece of paper from 60 days earlier that if you'd just responded to, nothing would have happened. So that happens a lot of the time with clients is that they ignore lawsuits and things of that nature.
Never ignore a lawsuit. That's my
Yeah.
tip here. I don't know how you could. I guess you don't want to.
I don't know.
You
Some people just think it's
if you
going to
don't
go
think
away.
about it, it's not real, right?
Yeah. It's going to go away.
Oh man, that is crazy. Um, okay, so I want to know what is one piece of advice or one thing that you would want everyone to know when it comes to hiring a lawyer or finding a lawyer or anything related to what you do?
Sure. Well, one thing from their perspective is you got to make sure you're serious about your business. You run it professionally. You follow all the protocols. You have all the documents in place. You don't mix and match things. You don't cross over from business to you personally. because you're going to run into issues. So you got to take everything seriously. You got to do everything by the book, got to be very due diligent. As far as hiring an attorney as a business, it's a requirement that you should have an attorney along with an accountant and other professionals. It's not a luxury. So budget that as part of your budget for your business is put in a legal expense and make sure in your business plan you have the, interact with attorney in there. And that's it. You should, you follow that guide. It'll be your business will either fail or succeed because of your business, not because of technicalities or things like we spoke about earlier.
I like that. I like the idea of planning to have funds for a lawyer, right? Like budget
Yeah,
it. Budget it in because you might need one or you should definitely have one just like you would budget other things in. So that's my takeaway. Budget in money into your plan for a lawyer and other professionals. I also really like the idea of, you want to run your business like a business and everyone should be keeping your personal stuff separate from your business stuff. I think that 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 doesn't happen as often as it should, but
yeah.
that is key. It's key. um, well, great. If someone wanted to talk to you more about what you do or maybe hire you, where would they be able to find you?
Sure. I'm all over the internet. I'm on every social media platform. I'm all over the place. The easiest way to get a hold of me or find out stuff is to go to my website, which is fornarolegal.com. It's just my last name, legal.com. And it'll have all my phone number, my email, all my social media, if you want to go look at that stuff. And then I have a section on there called media that has a bunch of like how-to videos and different informational videos that I've done. It's got all my podcast appearances, and then it has a bunch of blogs and white papers. So if you have a question at this point, I'm pretty close to being able to guarantee that there's an answer on my website for it. So go to my website, check it out. It'll have the answer to your question. If not, just contact me and I'll be glad to help you.
Awesome. That sounds like you have great resource. So go check out Matthew's website. Go see the resources. I need to do that for myself. I feel like every guest I have on the show, I'm like, I need to go look at all your resources. You're all full of information. It's so helpful. So I appreciate that. And I will put that information in the show notes as well if anybody wants to come and find you. And if anyone's looking to find more about me or what I do, you can find me on my website, www.newlightfs.com. And I don't have as many resources as Matthew. Maybe one day I will, though, but I do have this podcast and you can find that out there as well. But I really appreciate you coming on the show and speaking with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Stephanie. I appreciate it.
I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. This is it for this episode of Getting to the Bottom Line. I will see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.